Okay, so welcome to the first session of the Parents as Partners for 2018-2019. This is me, Vaughan Kitson, MYP coordinator, and let's get into it. So the dates for the future sessions have been decided. You might like to make a note of these. So for today, these are the topics, and then next week, etc., etc. Okay, so on today's session, firstly, the fundamentals of a unit of study in the MYP, a little bit about ManageBack, the platform for communication which we use in many IB schools, as well as a short video on moral education, which is something which all schools in the UAE are required to complete. Okay, so coming to the main diagram, which I'm sure many of you have seen before. It's very similar to the diagram for the PYP, the MYP, and the DP. At the heart, of course, we have the students, and that's surrounded by the IB learner profile. The learner profile, in case you've never come across it, there are 10 attributes of the learner profile, and we try to develop the 10 attributes of this learner profile in our students. You would probably notice posters, displays up around the school with a lot of these learner profile attributes. So in the MYP itself, we have approaches to learning, which are skills, and this actually carries from EY all the way up to grade 12, but it's arranged slightly differently. Another session will be focusing on approaches to learning. Concepts, of course, we don't just teach content, we teach within a concept, and as well as global contexts. More about these in a little while. Approaches to teaching governs the way that our teachers approach their planning and the way that they approach a lesson structure, etc. So, moving out to the next level, community project we don't do at Raha. It's not compulsory. We do, however, do the personal project. Students in grade 10 complete the personal project. Service and action is a component which is also compulsory in grades 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we have Mr. Stephen Buchanan, who's in charge of the service action component. It is included in the curriculum to an extent as well, but a lot of the service action is extracurricular, and this will be explained to your child. Here we have the 8 subject groups. So just very briefly, language, let's start over here. Mathematics, grade 6, 7, and 8 is simply called mathematics. In grade 9 and 10, we split into extended mathematics or standard mathematics. 2 classes of extended and 4 classes of standard. Then we go to design. There's product design and digital design, grade 6 to 10. The arts, grade 6, 7, and 8. All students do all 3 arts, visual arts, drama, and music. In 9 and 10, grade 9 and 10, they can choose one of those. The sciences, we have integrated sciences, so physics, chemistry, and biology. Grade 6, 7, and 8 is integrated sciences. Grade 9 and 10 is specifically physics or biology or chemistry. But at the moment, students do all 3 in a carousel, so 1 science each term. So PHE, or PE, as some people know it, grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, everyone does it. Language acquisition is basically the alternative options, which are French, Spanish, and Arabic B. So all students have to take Arabic. Arabic A, students take it as a first language subject in this subject group, and then everyone else takes Arabic B over here. Spanish is offered for the first time in grade 10 this year, and French, of course, has been offered for quite some time. Right, so moving over here, we have English or Arabic. As I said before, Arabic A students take Language and Literature, Arabic A, and everyone takes English, Language and Literature. Individuals and societies, most people know this as humanities, is taught as history, geography. There's also psychology and economics coming in, and it's quite an evolving subject. So it's actually quite fun to come up and talk to the humanities or individuals and societies department to see what's happening over there. This is what a MYP or an MYP unit involves. The action is what's actually happening in the teaching, okay? The inquiry is what happens beforehand, all the setting up the unit, which we'll get into today, and we reflect at various stages. So these three components are never far from each other. So in terms of the inquiry aspect, as you can see, we have things called key and related concepts, global context, statement of inquiry, inquiry questions, subject group objectives, summative assessment or assessments, and approaches to learning, as we touched on previously briefly. In terms of the action component, it's basically what is being taught, the content, how it's happening with the differentiation that happens, formative assessment, which are the tasks that students do to inform themselves and us of the progress they are making, the different learning and teaching strategies and experiences, as well as the resources. And then, of course, we reflect prior to, during, and after teaching each unit. It's an ever-changing, evolving process in the MYP. Okay, so the focus today really is on the four aspects of the inquiry stage, which are most relevant and pertinent to you and your children, and some of which might be completely new if you are new to the middle years program. So starting with concepts, when we set up a unit in the MYP, we have things called key concepts, and then we have related concepts. The key concepts are these ones you can see in the table, and they are the 16 which are set. However, there are recommendations that certain of these are used for certain subjects. For example, in mathematics, you might see your child having a unit with logic or relationships or form, whereas in other subjects, they could be different. Then we have related concepts, which are subject-specific, and I've just had a note for myself, which I didn't delete, so we'll look at that in a second. So, for example, in science, related concepts are supplied by the IB. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of related concepts, each with a definition, or not definition, but an explanation. So if we go back to the previous slide, so within the key concepts and the related concepts, a lot of the foundational big ideas are being formed. And we'll get to the global context next, which is the final of the three big foundational ideas. So global contexts, teaching and learning in the MYP involves understanding concepts in context. That's a very important sentence. So global contexts provide a common language for powerful contextual learning, which helps us answer these questions. Why are we engaged in this inquiry? Why are these concepts important? Why is it important for me to understand? Why do people care about this topic? So it's not a case of simply throwing a lot of content at the students like some of us learned many years ago. It's more about context, concepts, skills. And here are the 6 global contexts that we have in the MYP. So for those who have come from the PYP, the programs are not completely different animals. So we have, from the PYP transdisciplinary themes, we have the MYP global contexts. And as you can see, they pretty much map onto each other, like that and like that. Then we come to the statement of inquiry, or inquiry, if you like. And this is basically a sentence or a statement which governs the unit of study at the time, and will be displayed, students will be reminded about it. And it's if you look at these, it's basically a statement which explains clearly what students should understand, why that understanding is meaningful. So I'd strongly advise that you ask your child to show you what their statement of inquiry or inquiry looks like in their first unit of study in each subject, so you can get a feel for what it's all about. Then, separate to those aspects, we have inquiry questions, which are devised by the teachers during developing the unit, prior to teaching the unit. And we have 3 types of inquiry questions: factual, conceptual, and debatable. So these are basically example questions to explore throughout the unit. Now, in addition to those aspects of the inquiry part of the unit, we also have these 3, which you might remember from the list: subject group objectives, summative assessment, and approaches to learning. So very briefly, we have the subject group objectives are basically the criteria. So A, B, C, and D, which we'll see the details on the next slide. The summative assessment is the actual task. It could be a test, an investigation, a real-life problem, an oral test. It could be an exploration. It could be, depending on the nature of the subject, there are a whole range of different types of summative assessments that take place. And approaches to learning are the specific skills, and as I said, we'll go into a lot of detail with the ATLs in the next session, session 2. Okay, so looking at very briefly the assessment criteria, the nice thing about the MYP since 2014 is that all the subjects have 4 criteria: A, B, C, and D. So when I get into the session on assessment, it should be quite easy to understand, because each of these criteria is worth the same number of marks, 8 in fact. I don't want to get too much into the assessment details today. But for example, if your child is doing mathematics, criterion A, knowing and understanding, you can think of that as your traditional tests, not exactly the same as traditional tests that we perhaps know from many years ago, but it's more understandable for those people who are new to the MYP. B, C, and D would be investigative type assessments, all done under test exam conditions, but not your run-of-the-mill learning an algebraic concept and answering a question on an equation. That would be more criterion A. And each of the subjects has its own structure. A lot of the time you'll see criterion A is knowing and understanding. In fact, 5 of the subjects have knowing and understanding. Design has a very specific process. They first go through inquiring and analyzing, then developing ideas, creating the solution, and evaluating. So the creating the solution part is normally the making when it comes to the product design. Okay, so that's basically a little snapshot of what goes into a unit. And I know there will still be many, many questions. Fortunately, we have 4 sessions where the heads of faculty will be coming along and explaining in detail about their specific subjects. So please watch out for those sessions. So the next item on the agenda is Manage Bac. So Manage Bac stands for Manage Baccalaureate, which is the platform for communication used by probably nearly all, or if not all, the IB schools around the world. Okay, so it's important to note there are different types of views in Manage Bac. I, as a teacher, will have a different view to students who will have a different view to the parents. So the student view, when they log in, it doesn't say hi student, it says hi and their name. This is just a practice version, so it says student. So hi Jeff, and it will have their latest activity. So if a teacher has posted a task or homework or a message or anything else for that matter, not just their class teachers, it could be a general extracurricular activity group that they are part of, that should all pop up over here on their dashboard. Now if you click on the menu, it brings up all these options on the side here. So looking at calendar, these at the moment have nothing in, but that will change. So your child will be able to see exactly what is coming up and stay in control of their schedules. So looking at the IB Manager tab, sorry, I'm jumping around here. In messages, we have general messages which won't necessarily pertain to their actual teachers. It could be general things, as you can see, OSTRA, the house system, something about Raha school day timings, so general information, which could be sent to just grade 6 or all of grade 6 to 10 or just grade 8, whatever the case may be. The SA page, the service action, this is where they fill in the different service action activities which they are taking part in. There is a whole process they have to go through, and then the supervisor will either approve or say it's complete, rejected, needs approval. It's really well set up. Now, if they go to classes in academics and click on a class, this is a practice class, of course. Here the student can access all the important parts of that subject. So the tasks, any task that comes here or that is uploaded will come here, and the progress of the student based on the score that they achieve will all be in this tab here. Right, units, the details of the units, and then the rest is fairly obvious. Okay, so messages from the teachers, etc. In the portfolio tab, this is where the students will upload reflections on assessments, and in some cases, the actual assessments themselves. So I would advise you to spend some time looking at what is available there, what is completed there. In the parent view, you will also have access to the portfolio. Okay, so in terms of the parent, you would go to raha.manageback.com/parent, and you should be given a login, and then you sign in. This is what it looks like. Your child's name will appear here, your name will appear here, and it looks fairly similar with the activity. I'll come back to that. And on the left-hand side here, portfolio, it'll be the same as what I've shown you before, reports, and then, of course, progress. Now, the progress tab, this is just an example of a fairly complete one. So from mathematics, we've got the 4 criteria, and each of these is an assessment. Now, some assessments cover 2 or 3 criteria, others are just 1. And over here, it gets a little bit convoluted with all the colors, but at the end of the academic year, your child will have a whole bunch of these bars. So 8 is the maximum for each of the criteria, and 0, obviously, we try and avoid. And then the teacher will decide on the overall A, overall B, overall C, and overall D based on these bars. And more about that in the assessment session. Okay, so we've come to an end, or to the end of the academic, I suppose, part of the session. Now, just a video on moral education, and then we'll end off.